Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss how people are on red alert again about the prospect for the government to unilaterally take action to break the Northern Ireland Protocol, as Theresa May warns that this would be very bad for the UK, and how her plan would have meant no Irish sea checks at all, with Liz Truss also reported to have asked officials to draw up plans to tear up parts of the protocol. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So it recently occurred to me that Brexit is like the most tedious soap opera ever, with just a whole series of will they, won't they stories. It's like Friends. Started off as that rare beast, an American comedy that's actually funny, and quickly moved to the irritating tedium of focusing on the Ross and Rachel thing. Brexit seems to be the same, only we can't just turn it off if we're bored. We're stuck with the tedium. First of all, it was, will we leave the EU with or without a deal? Then it was, will we leave the EU or get a second referendum? Then we left and it was back to, will we leave the single market with or without a deal? Now we have a deal for leaving the EU, another one for leaving the single market, and now it's, will we or will we not honour that deal? That's what British politics is right now, the tedium of lazy Ross and Rachel script writing. A couple of weeks ago, we were told that the government planned to introduce legislation to allow ministers to unilaterally amend the protocol. Of course, having the legislation wouldn't mean ministers would have to use it. It could just have been a way of keeping the swivel-eyed loons in the Conservative Party and the DUP quiet for a bit, but it would also have raised tensions in the US and the EU. Last week, just before the Stormont elections, Northern Ireland Secretary Brandon Lewis said that the government weren't planning on introducing this legislation in the Queen's speech. At any rate, it wasn't going to be mentioned in the Queen's speech as reported, which completely wrong-footed the DUP. Again, only the second the Stormont elections were over, it's back to silly season. Dominic Raab, the man who is going to take away our human rights, said in an interview that the Northern Ireland executive would not form until we fix the problems with the protocol, alluding to the DUP saying that they will refuse to take their seats in Stormont until they get what they want. Raab was asked if this was not a case of Brexit damaging the union. No, he said. It's the EU. So yeah, it's the EU's fault that a UK political party is refusing to form the executive and a UK legislative assembly because of laws that govern what happens between one bit of the UK and another, and were put in place by a UK government who made them part of their main plank of a UK election campaign and formed a UK government on the basis of it. But yeah, it's the EU's fault. Do feel that we've been here again. It's like if Brexit was supposed to solve all of these problems that the Tories were complaining about for years and actually just made them worse, logically speaking, Brexit surely wasn't actually a solution, was it? Of course, when it comes to fixing the protocol, the reality is that the EU are doing this. Along with UK authorities, has to be borne in mind. Like, the government may moan about it and say, oh, this isn't working, but actual UK authorities, civil servants on the ground are working very hard as well. You know, since we left the single market, the EU and the UK have both been working with businesses in Northern Ireland to come up with practical solutions to make sure no unnecessary trade friction occurs. There's actually been a lot of progress, but the swivel-eyed loons don't want progress, they want hatred and division. Someone asked me recently, so what the DUP, for example, what's their alternative? What do they want? They want a hard border inside Ireland. They can't say so because the people of Northern Ireland absolutely categorically do not want this, which is why the DUP never actually offer up any alternatives. Then we see a report that Liz Truss, the Foreign Secretary and Cabinet Minister in charge of protocol talks, has asked officials to draft legislation to scrap parts of the protocol related to Irish sea checks and stop businesses in Northern Ireland having to follow EU regulations. The potential consequences of such a move from the EU would be mostly, first, EU ports could just start to be a lot tighter on checks. I don't know if some people think you either have checks or you don't, but there's a whole sliding scale. It's risk-based, a balance between trade flow and security of your borders. If you want to prioritise trade flow and you're not that bothered about security, then you carry out very few checks. That's what the UK is doing for EU imports. We're not bothered about securing our borders. We are bothered about trade flow, so we don't really do checks. But that way you open the way for smugglers to have an easy ride, cost you a fortune in lost import duties, and you risk unsafe products entering your market. Or you can go the other way. You can prioritise security very strongly. You could check every single shipment coming through. But that's not sensible either, because trade flow would actually grind to a halt then. So the EU is currently applying a balanced approach to this, but there's no reason why they couldn't move themselves towards the higher security end of the scale if they felt they needed to. Second consequence, and be a big one, especially in summer, it would knacker holidays somewhat, because UK planes wouldn't be able to fly around the EU. So the only way of being able to fly from Britain to Europe would be on an EU registered flight. Cannot tell you how badly that would hit our ability to travel. So much so that, like I say, I really couldn't. If the government were ever going to do this, you can't imagine them trying to do it in summer. It would be messy. The third major consequence would be that the EU could just cancel our trade and cooperation agreement. We'd then have weaker trade terms with the EU than the poorest countries in the world like Burundi or Somalia. And various influential member states did talk about that action. It's not just speculation on my part. It's not like they could do this, but they probably wouldn't. Oh no, they talked about doing just this. Boris Johnson was sufficiently spooked by the prospect last November that he hastily cancelled plans to muck about with the protocol. And let me tell you what I found most galling about the report that Liz Truss is pressing ahead with plans for unilateral action. The report in The Guardian, which I'll link, said that a government source said that while Truss still favoured negotiations, she had to press ahead with plans for unilateral action given the election results in Stormont. Given the election results? Well now, what did those election results show? They showed anti-protocol parties losing out. The parties who were happy with the results last week were those who defend the protocol and just want practical changes of the sort the EU are happy to work on. To say that the election results are what is prompting this policy being dug up again is to say that what the government want is to do the opposite of what the people of Northern Ireland want in order to completely bugger the economic hopes for the entire UK. Because that's what this is really about. The DUP have their ideas, but they're not relevant to the Conservatives right now. They were useful idiots back in 2017 when Theresa May pissed away a majority and needed a supply and confidence deal with them, for which the taxpayer paid a pretty penny. But right now the Tories don't need them. Boris Johnson doesn't need them. They also don't care about Stormont. It's possibly irritating for them, but they're not bothered. They don't care about Northern Ireland any more than they care about any part of the UK. Rather less so, in fact, I'd say. What they care about is that the protocol allowed Northern Ireland to be able to retain access to the single market for goods. In Northern Ireland, a business can export freely to the EU because they follow EU regulations. They can also export freely to Britain. It has allowed Northern Ireland to be the only part of the UK to properly recover economically from COVID, along with the other G7 nations. The UK as a whole may be lagging badly behind, but that doesn't mean each individual parties. And the data is increasingly stark. The Tory media can push the idea that Britain is doing great and Northern Ireland has problems because of the protocol. Because if you read the mainstream media, that's what you would think. You'd think, we're sort of getting on all right. Those poor buggers in Northern Ireland being screwed over by the protocol. Could you imagine? But the second you show these people the actual trade data, those lies are blown out of the water. You'll be looking at it and going, hang on a minute. They're doing really well out of this. Why can't we have that deal? The swivel-eyed loons hate it. Northern Ireland is the best ongoing argument against Brexit. They'd rather Britain's economy suffered even more just so long as they can drag Northern Ireland down with it. That's why there are those in the Conservative Party who seem comfortable with a destructive trade war with the EU that the UK cannot possibly win. And that's to say nothing of what the US may do. They've sounded alarm at the prospects of mucking about with the protocol, but they haven't actually come up with a specific consequence for it. So we really don't know how the US would react, but we do know how the EU would. And it's important to remember there are Conservatives who are against this madness as well. Some backbench MPs have spoken out strongly against these plans. Remember, all Tory MPs that are sitting in Parliament right now had to get behind Brexit and had to get behind Boris Johnson's Brexit. But they don't have to get behind him tearing up his Brexit. Former Prime Minister Theresa May spoke out against it this week. The report I referred to also says Gove and Sunak are not happy. So although I'll have to keep reporting on the will they, won't they of protocol compliance, it's very hard to know if there's a genuine plan to take this unilateral action, or if it's just tricks to stop the hardline Brexiteers circling too aggressively. It's like it's been throughout, with the Brexit going right back to the will we leave with a deal or not. And it was always said of this, the Tories, the Brexiteers, you cannot tell which ones of them are mad and which ones are just pretending. Is Boris Johnson serious about unilaterally scrapping the protocol, or is it just fun and games? Keep dangling the string of protocol action to keep the DUP and the loonies in the Conservative Party amused before you yank it away again at the last minute, and then they go, oh no, we're not happy, then you dangle it back in front of them. Or is Boris Johnson actually serious? And if so, would he have the support to go ahead with it even if he tried? But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button and maybe even click on the join button if you'd be interested in memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.